Monday, May 20th. Yeah, the 20th. How's everybody doing? This is Dr. T here. Thank you for joining in. I'm getting some feedback here. Feedback now. Hold on a second. Hmm. Let's try it now and see. Maybe I won't get the feedback. There we go. It's just simply pressing a button. Look at that. Hi, everybody. This is Dr. D here. Um, it's good to see a beautiful Monday. It's been a little gray. It's good to see the sun today. I hope you guys are enjoying it as well. And I wanted to talk today about a like put a thought in your head around the work of school leadership and how you go about it. You're also considering what how we look at leadership, how leadership can actually be looked at through a lens of business, right? When we think about business, education is a business. I, that it's a business that has money that exchanges hands for a certain service. We're providing a service. It's a business, right? Um, and so I wanted to take a look at an article today. A lot of all the time, I use articles to help kind of ground us in the conversation, but also to look at it through the data lens, like to change our lens, because I feel like, the expertise is in our buildings already. And you as leaders have the expertise, you have staff that have the expertise to make the shift that we need, right? Because we need to advocate for our most marginalized students. Our Black and brown students need to have the voices that are advocating for them and what they need and require to be successful in school and beyond, right? And so I live by this quote, that Margaret Wheatley shared, stating that we have to be brave enough to have the conversations that matter. And I always add that we have to be courageous enough to create the disruption that's needed to be to change the conditions that we certainly are experiencing in public education. And so today's topic is about radical leadership, right? And I want to talk about how these three types of leadership styles can create this radical leadership that we need. Okay? And typically I use, education-based articles, but today I'm going to use an article from the Harvard Business School about the three types of leaders who create radical change and make some parallels between that article and what school leadership looks like. So let's dig in. We're going to focus on this the role, these three different roles within this article. So the question I have to keep us grounded in this conversation as we are, I'm sharing this information with you and you are putting your comments in the conversation, being in the conversation is which leadership style resonates with the most with your current approach as a school leader, right? And what is one specific action that you could take to further develop or balance these styles in your own leadership practice? And it's interesting because as I was article, I was like, yeah, trying to figure out where I would fit in my leadership style with one of these three styles that they mentioned. Um, and I think I believe that I have been all three in some way, shape, or form. I do believe that I possess the skills stronger, like they are evident in one area over another, and you may find that too as we go through this. So let's jump right in and let me share the article with you. Um, it is again a business article. You can see the three types of leaders who create radical change. The article was written in 2017 by Carmen Noble. And what makes this really interesting is she uh, did some research. This woman by the name of Julie Batalana, I hope I'm saying her name correctly, about leadership style in the business sense, right? Like But again, education is a business, so keep that in mind as we are having this conversation. And according to Julie, there are three different types of leadership styles that we possess, right? One is an agitator, right? The agitator stirs the pot by articulating and publicizing societal grievances, rallying an otherwise diverse group of people around a mutual desire for change. When you think about public school, especially urban schools, that is what you see all over, right? We have agitators all over social media. We have organizations that are pushing for this disruption that's required to get people ignited about, where we are in education, to bring awareness to folks to say this is like putting the challenges that we have and the disservice and the oppression that is occurring in public urban schools, putting it under a microscope and letting everyone know, right? And the goal is to get people emotionally attached to what that problem is, right? And then she goes on to say that effective agitators are able to draw attention to a problem, right? And convince others that it requires both corrective action and collective work uh, to bring about any kind of change. So think about where you are in your leadership or how you embody leadership in your building. What would your staff say about how you lead? Are you an agitator? Are there points in your leadership where you are agitating to build like an emotion and like an attachment to a challenge? Like I know I did it. I would bring up our student data and put names to it and faces to it so that we can get that fire in the staff's bellies around what we really need to do. Like there is a sense of a, a state of emergency. Really, it's a societal change that really needs to happen. This is a social action, right? Which is one of the reasons why I wanted to share this article because these three leadership styles talk about how to create movement in society. Okay. So the agitator is one who actually draws attention to the problem. And so some of the key traits of an agitator are, you know, agitators will push for significant change, right? Often challenging existing norms to be like to have a better educational system. And so how are you pushing for change? How are you pushing for change? So if you have initiatives that are coming down the pipe from the district and you know that they are counterproductive for your school, how are you pushing for change? This is the agitating, like the agitation, right? And this is what is leading to this sense of radical leadership where you're not following the status quo. You are doing things that are outside of the norms because we know that those norms is what's holding our marginalized babies back, right? So a practical step, and I hope you're thinking about one now, because you know, the grounding question here is thinking about which leadership style resonates with you the most, resonates with your current approach, and what is one specific action you can take to further develop a balance out leadership styles. And so one practical step that could possibly be taken is organize meetings with your staff to talk about, you know, the pressing issues with faculties and and the parents in your building to make sure collective voices are heard and really put steps in place to do something about it, not just have the town hall just to have it. Well, take that data, that qualitative data that your staff and your parents are sharing with you, like what really needs to change for the betterment of the school community, and really put those things into action, right? And here's where the innovators come in, right? Because now, as an agitator, you are bringing awareness, right? And saying, no, we're not going to do this way because it has been X, Y, and Z. It has created these types of problems for people in our community, right? We've seen signs of agitative leadership throughout history. And as a school leader, your job is to bring that, like, the fire in the bellies of folks so that the innovators in leadership can now come up with the strategic plans. And so according to this article, an innovator, he says the innovator develops a solution to address the grievances. When you have that town hall, you have them every quarter, you have the grievances. Your innovators are the ones who are creating, like they're the ones who are the first to share some creative kind of um, way or solution to address whatever the challenge is, whatever you agitated, right? So that means anticipating roadblocks, coming up with alternative paths, right? As well as justifying those alternatives and appealing ways to engage individuals, groups, and organizations. That's the role of the innovator. An innovator is likely someone who has studied, lived, or experienced something beyond the norms in a given environment and thus able to create a vision of a different future that nonetheless makes sense to and captivate those living with the existing practices and conditions, right? So the innovator is needed after that pain point is agitated, right? They're the ones who bring ideas and technologies to advance the educational practices that should be occurring in your buildings, right? Some of the key traits of innovators would be they're creative, they're visionary, they're proactive in implementing change. Innovators are absolutely necessary. You can't be in a leadership role and just be an agitator because you're going to create a toxic environment, right? It's going to become chaotic. People are going to be angry all the time. So you agitate, but you also have to have your innovators. Okay. If you are not the innovator as a school leader, you have to make sure that you have one on your leadership. So a practical step for being an innovator, playing the role of an innovator, is implementing a pilot program to introduce some new teaching tool or curricula, right? Before giving it to the entire school population, right? So maybe it's one or two classes that are doing it. So for example, um, when I was the principal at the school in Baltimore, the elementary school in Baltimore, I wanted to, and uh, plenty of schools have done it. This school had not. Um, Looping. I asked which teachers would be interested in looping with their class for the next year, and I had 2 teachers volunteer to do that. Sent out communications to families talking about some data to say that it's effective, and explaining what it would look like. Shared it with the staff, like, around the 2 teachers who were willing to take this leap into this new, um process for their classes, and it was amazing. And a each year we grew and increased with teachers understand once they see the results, their students, the 2 teachers who decided to loop the results, those, students had had, excuse me, um, and the culture that was created in those classrooms that, more teachers wanted to sign on, right? So this innovation of trying something new, even though it's not new for the world, but it's new for you and your environment as a school leader, for your staff, um, and trying it out first, collecting the data to see what worked and what did not work before you have everybody else jump on board, right? So, you know, making sure that you have these leadership styles on your leadership team is really critical. Let me go back to the agitator first, because I know as a school leader, we all have staff that bring different things to the table. And we all have staff who it may be 1 or 2, it may be 5, but there's always one who's gonna push back on everything, every single thing that you say or do, right? That person could be considered an agitator, right? Find out why. again, like I said in previous lives, when people are pushing back on something, it could be fear, fear of the unknown, fear of change. It could be a multitude of things. But when you have staff who are pushing back and agitating, right, like their colleagues about an initiative that you want to introduce, your job is to connect with that teacher and find out, where the agitation is stemming from. And again, this is where emotional intelligence as the leader, you're using those skills, right? All of these things have to work together. So consider those things. And I'd like to hear your thoughts, share in the comments below. What do you think so far? Like, which one of these resonate with your current leadership style as an agitator or an innovator? And the third one, and then in here she goes on to provide some examples of how innovators in society, experience in society. Um, and then the third one, okay, let me go back to innovation. So she also says here, Julie also says here, if you do not innovate and have a solution to the problem you've identified, the movement will right? Similar to what I was saying about agitator. If you're just agitating and that's all you're doing, you're creating a toxic environment. You get fired up and ready to go, and then there's no solution to the problem, right? Moving on to the third one, the orchestrator. This person is needed just as much as the other two. This leadership style. So the orchestrator is the person who spreads the solution created by the innovator, continually strategizing how to best reach and work with people both within and outside the environment as the movement for change grows in size and complexity, right? Orchestrators often need to tailor their message to the interests of various constituencies they are trying to persuade or influence, okay? Your orchestrators are the people who they excel in bringing together various elements of the school community to work harmoniously toward the common goal. That is absolutely critical. Who is who is the person or people in your building who are the gatekeepers? Who are the ones who can reach the community, the stakeholders, and have them come in? Who are those folks? Who are the ones who can take an idea from the innovators and create the steps so that it reaches everybody? Because your innovators are coming up with like, the visionary pieces of it and putting those steps in places, but the key traits of an orchestrator are strong organizational skills. Who are those people? Who are your master coordinators, your community builders in the building? Who is that on your team? And here's the thing, once you take inventory of these things, like if you have someone who has strong organizational skills, they're master coordinators, they're community builders, and they're not on your leadership team, you may need to have them on your leadership team, right? You may need to ask, like, invite the person to sit in on the leadership team because they possess the skills that are needed for all three of these leadership types to work in unison, okay? So, who identify, like the question that was posed at the beginning, identify your own leadership, which leadership style resonates most with your current practice, right? Once you do that, which one resonates with your current practice the most? Who's on your leadership team that fills the gaps with the other? Because I'm sure you, as a school leader, possess some aspects of each one, an educator, an innovator, an orchestrator. But your strength may be in one over the other two. So identify what that is, right? but make sure that on your leadership team, you have the the other 2 very strongly on your leadership team, so that when you are engaged in conversation, when you're planning, the all of those perspectives are at the table and also engaged in the planning process, right? So think about that. And then the other thing to consider here is the specific action that you would take to help, you know, balance out these styles in your leadership practice, because you have them all. And it's the key here is making sure that you have other people on your leadership team um, in at the table when you are making decisions, when you are having the conversations to have this like critical, radical change that is needed within your school, with like breaking outside of the norms. You have to operate outside of the norms. And you know, it's better for you as an urban school leader to ask for forgiveness, right? If we keep operating in this way where we are following the norms that are not set up for us to be successful in the first place, then you're like a hamster in a wheel, right? Radical change requires radical action. And so you need thinking about about you and your leadership style and these 3 using these 3 lenses can really help identify, like, what are your next steps? What do you need to do next, in order to make this huge shift, this transformational shift that your school needs, okay? So, the call to action here, and again, hit me with some comments, let me know your thoughts. The call to action here is to reflect on these styles and how you're gonna integrate them daily into your leadership practice, okay? How are you going to integrate these 3 leadership styles into your practices? And a part of the framework of the change the narrative framework, um, that I use has a lot to do with the very first phase, which is mind, uh, the gap, meaning the gap in your between your actions and your vision and your values, because at the conclusion of phase 1, you have created your, value-led leadership actions. And so how do those value-led leadership actions, how do these 3, right, the agitator, innovator, and the orchestrator, how do those 3, um, fit into your value-led leadership act, okay? Again, this is a constant collection of qualitative data, which is absolutely necessary. And it again goes on through a cycle. You're collecting, you're analyzing, you're talking about what changes, pivots, additions need to occur. You're implementing those changes, you're assessing again, right? It's a constant cycle that you and your leadership team should be engaging in the entire school, multiple times, consistently over the course of the school year, right? And so again, the call to action here for you is reflect on the styles shared here. I'm going to drop the link in the comments so that you have access to it. The article is a very short article. Um, and how you're going to integrate these roles into your leadership practice. So think about that for a second. I also want to share the traps and challenges Julie says leaders uh, fall into from time to time. So she says agitators need to communicate the necessity of the social change movement. Innovators need to communicate the validity of the proposed solutions, and orchestrators must be able to tailor information to different types of constituents. Sometimes different groups all over the world are maintaining a cohesive message. Again, this is a business article, right? But we're relating it to education. Um, so some of the things that the traps that she talks about is among agitators, fragmented agitation. Is what I was telling you about being careful. Triggering multiple areas of outrage that can't work as a as a cohesive cause in a stalled solution, right? So you're raising a valid complaint but lacking a remedy to offer. One of the things I used to have my leadership team whenever we would have an issue with not just the leadership team, but on staff, they would come and ask or share a challenge or a problem that was happening. I would always ask them, well, what have you tried? Just like, what solutions have you tried? Right? After a while, they knew that they had to come to me with the problem and at least one solution that they have attempted to solve that problem before coming to me. Right? So creating that muscle for problem solving is very important. So um, raising a valid complaint but lacking a remedy to offer, that's a muscle that you can build um, with your staff. Among innovators, some of the traps are tunnel vision. So failing to consider the negative implications of a proposed solution and impractical elegance. Proposing a solution that looks great on a computer screen but is virtually impossible to orchestrate. Right, so we need our realistic people at the table with the orchestrators to say, like, "This is not realistic. Like, how can we make this create this SMART goal around this initiative that we are proposing?" Okay? Seeing the good, the challenge, the potential challenges, and the potential and the benefits of an initiative created by the innovators. A trap for orchestrators or vision drift, right? Losing sight of the envisioned social change and dilution, watering down the movement to the point that it no longer addresses grievances. Okay, this one's big for me because I feel like we are like public education is stuck in mission. If our goal is to educate all children, that's not happening. I feel like we've lost sight of that because we started taking the desires and needs of the adults over children. That's mission drift. Right? So we need all 3 people at the table having conversations to make sure that, um, the thing stays the thing, which is our babies, right? Our most marginalized. So I'm gonna the call to action again is reflect on the styles and integrate them into your daily practice, keeping in mind that your value-led leadership goal should be included and that you're also, like, using your empathetic leadership skills, okay? So, the this week, Wednesday, we're gonna talk about this a little more, but I'm also going to provide some very clear steps, on how you can inform your decision making, have stronger decision making practices and skills as a leader. So, sign up for the free masterclass, which is Wednesday, May 22nd, 6:30 PM Eastern Standard Time. It's a 90-minute masterclass, um, and it's called Transformational Decision Making for Urban School Leaders, Establish Clarity, Lead Confidently, and Increase Results for your school. Okay? Sign up. I'm gonna put that link also in the comments so that you have easy access to sign up. Um, and I hope to see you there, right? Remember to think about those 3 leadership styles, and we can continue the conversation as we, get in the Zoom room on Wednesday. I look forward to seeing you. Have a fantastic day. Keep going, leaders. We need you.